Oh boy, and you look at Fusion University. This isn't take him at all. We got the Who Are You coming out on Doomfist, so this is going to be explosive one way or another. Curious to see how the.
So on this patch, it appears there was basically just US World Cup team and then Fusion, who are abusing basically how broken Ana is on this patch specifically, because Winston has a bug where he does a full splash damage of his jump pack regardless of where he lands. So he is getting a ton more damage than they normally would, and so people are going for, like, rather than isolating one person and looking to get like the max damage on one person, they're looking to basically just splash an entire team and then do a ton more damage than they normally would. Normally I'd do, like, I don't know, in between 1 to like 10 for a bunch of players, and then maybe do like 50 to 1. They're doing like 50 to like every single person. So Monkey is being like absolutely spammed, and the teams that are abusing it the most are Fusion and the US team. The US team had a little different variant to it, which I'll go over potentially after this, but that's just something to preface. Also, they were. Fusion was running like Ana Zen before, but I think this comp works well if you're trying to play against a monkey and you're trying, like, if you're trying to survive with two supports. Like, the Ana Zen doesn't survive as well as Ana Lucio can. Doesn't give the sim kill pressure, and Who Are You isn't going to be like receiving orb as much as he does, but you actually play around the main tank more in this comp, which is something that Fusion doesn't normally do, but yeah, they basically are playing very polar opposite comps here, where you could see Who Are You was standing up here on the high ground. There was members all scattered. They're all playing corners, and they're basically hiding because XL2 has a comp where Nene is just trying to stand in open ground. So let's go back. Like, they have these flank DPS on Fusion's side, and XL2 is basically trying to like walk their Kree with their Brig, and they're basically trying to take space together, where wherever they walk, they're trying to just walk up and take space, and if they're able to get like cooldowns like Doom out and they're able to kill him midair or stun him, then a lot of the threat is going to be gone from their backline getting killed. So, never mind, it's Goliath killing him. I don't know why I said Nane, but it's basically the same thing. They're like trying to walk together, trying to use their range, trying to walk up slowly and basically abuse the fact that they have Kree stun, Brig stun, and potentially Brig armor pack on whoever is going to be getting dove. So it's like very like, let's walk up slowly. It doesn't retake as quickly, but you definitely have more range damage. And you can see XL2 is really like trying to push them out, and then all the members of Fusion are basically hiding, trying to make them take that space, walk out into areas where they don't want to necessarily be, and like force them to peel back. If they don't have Nano to match, it's really hard to win fights, just for the fact that the monkey can get so much ult charge. Like, he's sitting at 67% here. He's getting like, he gets the Nano, and then he starts cleaving like so many people, and as he lands here, he basically gets 10% ult charge from landing on like 2 or 3 people, just because the amount of damage it does. And in turn, that snowballs more and more, because then he's able to build Primal. The Nano will roll off, and then he'll be getting spammed by a lot of members, but then Alarm will be building another ult off of him. Basically buy a lot of space. I think that EMP was too forced. They didn't have much threat on them, so they had no need to basically use a trance. Like, the thing that probably Fusion needs to consider always here is basically, if XL2 has had at any point the Brig ult, or Goliath has recently been armored, he's not going to drop to that 50 HP, which is going to be very killable. At this moment, he's basically going to drop to 100 HP, maybe even more. So he's not going to be in that same killable threat. And if there's not a monkey there to do like the amazing splash damage that he would do with his jump pack, and then Sombra instantly killing him after, a lot of times he's going to be able to get pocketed. So something to consider is probably always where's the armor at that given moment. Because he even gets tagged after, and he's still got like 100 HP on Goliath, and he doesn't even end up losing all of his armor. They're swapping to goats, so this is something that I'm thinking that I actually could have stayed on that last comp and forced is basically XL2 isn't gonna like hard aggress on any team. They're really just gonna play for space and they're gonna poke a lot. Something in my brain I'm thinking is like allow them to poke, put the monkey on the point and hard pocket him with the Ana and really just build that nano to give like that extra rotation. Maybe you like don't win a fight and give up like 40%, but I feel like it's gonna be like a consistent retake if you just like get that nano and keep the Ana safe. But playing a bit differently here where goats will definitely give them an option of let's take this ground instantly. Let's have our team comp. There's two options basically. There's only two options. It's basically let's wrap around, force this McCree on the high ground to then be McCree on the point or McCree out in the open somewhere because they don't want to stand on the high ground. XL2 doesn't. Or you take the whole goats team, you put them on the point, you start capping and say, come to us, let's fight. That's something they don't want to do. They want to take it a little bit slower, and so having that Lucio and having goats is actually, I'd say, a pretty good decision to make versus this. Where it's actually going to be very hard for them to die. A lot of team comps that you see that play to counter Fusion's goats is basically the Pharah, the Junkrat, some sort of AoE DPS, and so Kriya's going to get a lot of ult charge, but I imagine his Deadeyes aren't going to be that as effective. Nanohana usually isn't going to be allowed to swing as aggressively, so it's going to be hard for them to build up ults. The way they isolated them was actually very interesting there. Normally, you would see a different play. So, as a team is coming onto point with goats, usually you see the tanks touching. So, it would be like Nanohana, Huyal, and Tizzy, and then they would be the ones focused first. So, something that Runaway did really well was like get the main tank to like touch them, like come near them, and then basically bait other members after the fact, and then go on them and like ignore the monkey or kill whatever main tank was there first with most of the members, isolate them, like give them like Brig stun, Brig hit and like whip shot them into the corner, pin them somewhere, and then just focus them down. But it looks like here they basically play to somewhat ignore them. So like they slept Tizzy and then they're dropping a bomb in his face. They're like, who are you is dying, but they're trading 1-for-1, and their healing is actually at a decent spot right now. So having that Ana isn't that bad because they're able to beat. And you can see they kind of just ignore the point. Like it kind of doubles where they're running away from the point anyways, it looks like, because they're going for all the squishies. And then the D.Va's kind of dropping bomb and they're like, oh, we're not going to play on the point anyway. So it kind of defeats the purpose. And Huyal doesn't actually get to participate much here. He zones alarm, but they had a very large beat on them at the time. Like they just got beat as they were running out, so they actually didn't have that much threat on them. So it buys time for alarm to wrap back around to start healing his tanks. So especially when you have that Lucio and the other team doesn't, if they ever walk up like they did, like they wanted to get value with the trance, XL2 did, they were really able to just be like, okay, you guys are walking forward, we're going to speed boost into you, and this is going to be your downfall, basically. Is like, you don't want to be standing here right now because we have both of our tanks. It's like 2 or 3 of the tanks have beat, like they're just going to run into you, and once that trance is over, there's nowhere for you to run, so they just ran them over. And there was no Diva to protect them or anything, so. So now they have the Pharah and the Sombra, which are going to be much more disruption than Kree was. Kree and Brig versus Ghost. So this is a good swap. The problem is they don't really have any discords or anything to like force the space, so they basically have to get the spam, have to get a window where they get a hack, they get a nade off. Otherwise, there's not going to be any opening for them to actually get any progress. This is actually working somewhat good for XL2. They're getting a lot of stalls, so something they maybe didn't consider properly is there's a window of time here where they get antied, and it's basically the only time that they can get punished truly, unless there's like a barrage or an EMP, but they just swapped to those heroes, so it's not going to happen. So they're like, XL2 hits the anti, the monkey jumps in. The problem here is the monkey is cleaving, and he's getting hard pocketed by both supports, and so if you commit this many members to basically trying to kill the monkey and you don't successfully kill him, the problem is he's going to be cleaving the majority of your team while you're trying to do this, and he's going to like supercharge his ult. And we can see Goliath's ult charge is just stacking up real quick, and Tizzy is getting insane cleave. He gets nanoed, and he's just going to be able to play even much more aggressively, and he's going to be basically unkillable whenever he gets the nano, and he's primaling. You can see how basically there was like full man focusing him, and they still weren't able to get him down. In this instance, though, I think Bernard does the right thing. Let's see if we can see where he is. Can't see where the bomb is exactly, but it's very impressive that he got Nanohana basically in the middle of a fight. And that basically causes Adam to die after that, like not being able to fly to your Pharah after you've gotten bombed because the Pharah is dead means he's usually going to be isolated. Goliath's going to be playing very far back. Nene is going to be playing close. Tizzy was on the point, so there's no one for him to fly to. So XL2 had a good idea with their first comp, and it basically forced Fusion to switch. And then their retake was somewhat good, but at the same time they got outplayed, and it's really hard to... let's see. It's really hard for them to win fights when they had this fight, basically. It's like they hit the ante, everyone's inside the fight. They're playing very aggressively, they trade who are you. But the problem is, who y'all bombs when he needs to be peeling for his backline, and that ends up just like allowing his entire team to be ran over. The next thing is, they need a very fast comp to actually get in here and like do enough damage to like win, and this fight ends up going too long where they don't end up getting like that good of an advantage, where sure they get the grab out and it like works well, where they're like, it feels like they're buying time for Nanohana to build his ult, but at the same time there's no progress they're getting made on killing Alarm. They don't have the same threat. It feels like Nene isn't really able to do much. Being able to have like 50% ult charge against like a tank team that's not contesting you is because there's not really anywhere for him to shoot. Like, when you're playing this back part of Lighthouse, there's not really anywhere for him to stand. Like, he can stand like here, but then a lot of times the tanks are going to be here, and it'll be sometimes just like a Rhine holding shield or Diva just matrixing, so there's not a lot of chance for him to ult charge, and maybe potentially he's over here, but again, it's usually like supports are going to be back here on the point, so there's not going to be much threat on them. So it's like very hard for them to like sync up the Sombra on the point because there's not really any flank area because like the width of the back of the point is very small, so there's not a lot of area for like the Sombra to actually flank. And we can see he's on the point and he hacks someone and he's shooting, but like as soon as they turn, which is like they only have to take a few steps this way, then they're instantly on him and he has to translocate away. So it doesn't end up working that well for them. Okay. Fusion scouts the comp here and they fan out, which is exactly what they need to do. And then they have members playing very close, ready to punish anyone who's in this doorway. So Goats like ideally wants to play here and they basically want to run into each other. But if the other team is playing like what Fusion's playing, then they're going to be able to just avoid it, wait for you to walk in, and then look to stun. And with the situation they're in, basically XL2 has to make some sort of rotation and be able to get around and actually pressure this backline, because if they don't, all the members on Fusion can like punch through here, the Sombra can come around, hack through here, the D.Va is free to shoot people here, and then the supports are both sitting in the back, both playing very safe and able to free pocket anyone who's actually going in for these dives. So the sleep lands, it really messes their tempo up. And you can see both the supports on Fusion's side, they're both standing here, basically negative threat on them because XL2 is now missing their brig, they're missing a lot of healing. They haven't been able to make a rotation onto them, so it's basically 4 of Fusion's front lines at this point are just having free reign of XL2 as they're like trying to hold shield and trying to rotate. So this fight needed to be reset much sooner from XL2. If you're not able to get on this backline because you don't have an efficient enough team alive at the time, then you're just feeding. Like they needed to just run it down at that point. They were trying to play to like survive, but they don't have a lot of threat on them, so they're also able to just mega scout them out. Like any rotation that they're making, you can see Deanna's playing very far back on the left, so she's in like a very safe position, very far away from them. Beast Halo is just cleaving them, max cleaving the entire team whenever he wants. Bernard is going to be next. He's going to be able to shoot rockets into them. So like XL2 is going to just have a difficulty making any rotation. So I would have liked to have seen the instant swap where you either swap to a monkey from the Zarya because I feel like the charge is going to be very bad, or swap a Sombra instead of the Brig, just something to give them some more options. Because even who are you going for something risky like this? He hasn't actually shut anyone down. It's not really done anything. Or he's not had anything like, he's not been shut down himself. Once the rotation of the Nano is up, and if XL2 doesn't have anything to deal with it, there's just going to be a Nano Monkey on the backline, the anti comes in, and then someone's going to be melted down. They're trying to poke and like get some energy on the Zarya because you don't want these reset fights on goats over and over again if your Zarya is just getting farmed. The problem is allowing Zachary to basically get a free EMP if he didn't have it already, and then look for that opportunity. If they're going to like sit there, not use their speed, they're going to split up a bit. I don't know if this... Does the Shatter hit anyone? I don't think it hits anyone. They're somewhat split up here. I'm trying to find exactly how much CMP hits. They're somewhat splitting. Like, I think this is okay. Splitting their members so that they're basically like deciding and saying like, if you're going to EMP, you're only going to hit these select members, and they have Adam basically being the sacrificial lamb of like, if we're going to get EMP'd, then it's fine, because then Nene is going to be able to grab after, so it's an okay idea. The problem is Goliath was so far forward, and like Goliath needs to be the one who's kept alive, if anything. The bait squads probably has to be who y'all Tizzy Adam. And then you have Goliath stay alive, so he's able to like throw orb and like really spam heal after the fact. Because there's ults that just aren't able to be built. So like Nene gets his Grav, but everyone else is like, the Shatter doesn't really get any value. The Beam doesn't end up getting that much value. And there's others who just don't end up getting their ults. Like Adam doesn't even get his ult at the end of the game. No, the Grav doesn't even hit anyone. So yeah, if you don't end up mirroring or give yourself a chance, then there's heroes like Zarya and Lucio who don't end up getting their ults soon enough, even when you're playing an entire Koth map, just because the playstyle that you're going for is fast rotations, need to get onto the Ana, and whenever you give yourself no options with range and leaps and things that Monkey and D.Va can offer you, then you end up doing like this pathing thing where you just path, get yourself killed, path, get yourself killed, path, get yourself killed, and then it's last fight, and your Lucio's just been speeding the whole time. You haven't had a chance to actually have him heal, be aggressive. Your team's getting executed on too fast, so you haven't had a chance to use your bubbles to actually like get rotations of cooldowns and then use them again whenever you have high energy to actually be a threat in the fight. So these members end up being basically like fodder, while the other members don't actually end up doing much either because they're all melee. And so I don't like Goat's picks into this comp specifically, and I don't think you're allowed to unless you play a different variation of it where you give yourself other options. I'm not sure if that's a Pharah or Sombra playing monkey with goats. I think is just any option would just be better than what they had. Okay, there's map 2.